Thanks so much for this, Rob. Saw Gulliver's Travels yesterday. It was a lot of fun, but I was thinking there's no definitive version of Gulliver's Travels out there. There have been adaptations, since like the 20s. What was it about Gulliver's Travels that made you want to retell the story now?
I'd read the book when I was a kid and seen a lot of the adaptations, particularly the Fleischer animation in the 30s, and so I had those images in my head, and I always remembered as a kid. And the adaptations are they take the fantasy and adventure aspect out of the book, but later in life, having reread it, I think Jonathan Swift was really after a comedy. At least that's my perception of it. He was very satirical, and he's poking fun at his cultural references of the time, and it was ahead of its time in many ways as a parody, maybe a parody of Robinson Crusoe, which had come out prior to that. So the feeling was the true spirit of it was this ridiculous scatological comedy. And so to stay true to the book, one angle for us was to do really the first time the comedy version of Gulliver's Travels. And so in order to do that, we took a lot of license with the story, but Jack starts off in modern day New York so that we could bring our cultural references into Lilliput.
And he really does, because there's a point where he just takes over Lilliput completely, and you he's the avatar figure on like a billboard and stuff like that. Right. And I think you needed someone like Jack Black. When he came on board, he's obviously executive producer as well. How important is he to the whole process of getting Gulliver's Travels made?
Well, he's the whole reason. I mean, Jack was attached to the project before I got involved, so it was a Jack Black Gulliver's Travels project, and as a comedy, it makes all the sense in the world. It's just a great idea, and it's the reason why the movie's made, hands down. And he's a lot of fun, and he's a great guy, and he's really earnest and really sweet in true life, and it translates on screen. And so he's a big kid, and kids sort of gravitate towards Jack and identify with him, and it's a great opportunity, and it's a lot of fun with the idea of making Jack, who's not the tallest guy in the world, making him huge.
Sure, no, I understand. I mean, he is very much the modern person coming in, and I got the sense, because you have this wealth of British talent on the ground, literally on the ground, in terms of like Catherine Tate and Billy Connolly and Emily Blunt. He is almost like he is modern America, and they are kind of like quaint old English sensibilities. Yeah. Was that kind of your angle in kind of bringing them together?
It was, yeah. I mean, truth is, selfishly, I've been looking for an excuse to work with that UK cast on anything. Okay. Like, if this was a sci-fi spaceship movie, I would have figured out a way to make that cast work. But then it's sort of the opportunity to juxtapose Jack Black's style of comedy with the UK cast that I've been fans of prior to this. I mean, I chased every single one of those guys down. Seemed really appropriate for this story, because he falls through the rabbit hole, so to speak, and winds up in this fantasy universe. It was important for that universe to be different from where he came, and in order to have the fabric of that consistent, I wanted to make sure we were consistent about this British cast. And even Jason Segel, who's not from here, he learned the British accent as best he could, and just to keep the fabric of that universe intact. And so I think it worked. It's my favorite part of the movie, really. It was
nice to sort of see them, and Jason Segel in particular. I was trying to work out, is that really him? Because his voice was, it was really convincing. I was really quite surprised. But you have like great comic talent in terms of Catherine Tate and Billy Connolly, and you also have Jack Black. Was there much kind of improvisation on set, or did you know exactly where you wanted to go with, with all the lines of dialogue?
All improv. It's all improv, and the script is great. Nicholas Stoller wrote it, and he's hysterically funny. He did Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Get Him to the Greek, and tons of inappropriate jokes. But I purposely wanted everyone to feel free to go off the script, and so did Jack, and so everything was designed to allow for that, all the way down to like incredible technology was built primarily to accommodate the comedy more than the visual effects. So we had this multi-camera system that was built for the movie so that we could film, for example, we have this big war song sequence at the end. Everyone's dancing, and there's 250 background extras all choreographed to dance together with the cast. And then Jack was 100 yards away on a miniature set, and both cameras were rolling, and they were synced so we could move them around. And the camera on Jack was sort of miniaturized, and then I had the images overlaid together on my monitor so that we could get it. And they had, Jack had a little earpiece, and then there was a loudspeaker on the rest of the cast. And it was just all to bring the performances together, to keep it fluid and allow for that sort of natural process you would get if you were just shooting them all together at the same time.
And was that how you used the rest of the sort of the visual effects? Did you have them both running simultaneously?
As much as we could. I mean, it doesn't work for everything. We had so many different ways to do it. It was a paradox. And then there was other times where we had to separate it. 2 months later, we'd go back and shoot Jack's side against green screen, but he was always there, even when we weren't filming him, off camera, performing with everyone through a microphone and a loudspeaker, and playing around, and improvising with them. And then, I'd have to take all that and sort of piece it all back together. But that's how you do it.
Yeah. And it worked really well. So the visual effects were incredible. Tell me about 3D, because I believe it was converted in post. Is that right?
Yeah.
You've used 3D Monsters vs. Aliens in particular. There was a lot of like new stuff in there.
Yeah.
Were you able to use 3D in a particular way for Gulliver's Travels? What did it enhance in the film?
Yeah. So the 3D, well, in Monsters vs. Aliens, which also has a giant, coincidentally, the one thing I sort of noticed and loved about the 3D on that was how it enhances the scale, the feeling of the giant. So we did a post-process conversion on Gulliver's Travels, but it was unique on this movie because we had the added advantage of the fact that Jack was primarily against green screen. So it's not your traditional conversion because Lilliput is essentially digital. And so the 3D conversion was actually really great, and I'm sort of blown away by it, to be quite honest, because this company Stereo D did it, and they did an amazing job. And I'm a fan of a more subtle, elegant window into the depth. I don't like poking people's eyeballs out, because one, the movie's for kids primarily, and you want to be sensitive to that and have it be comfortable, but also it's a viewing experience, and so it's really about making it comfortable for the audience. And then the added advantage is you really get a sense of scale out of the 3D, and the movie's available in 2D or 3D, but that you don't get the same experience in the 2D version as you do in the 3D version of Jack being 120 feet tall.
Sure. One final question. What's next for you? Is it animation, or are you just stick in live action?
Yeah, I don't, just any job would be great, would be the next thing.
What's the next story that you want to tell?
Yeah, it's all about stories and sort of hoping and praying that something great comes around that I can jump on. Whether it's animation or live action, doesn't really matter to me. I like the storytelling part.